So Todd, you've had many connections with the Beatles over the years. I guess one of the first would be producing Badfinger's third album, Straight Up, which you took over production duties from Beatle George Harrison in the summer of 1971. Tell us how that came about. George left the sessions to go...
Well, the complete story is that George took over from Jeff Emmerich,
right,
who was the engineer, I believe, on a lot of their later records, Sgt. Pepper in particular.
Right, he took over for Norman Smith.
Norman Smith, who went crazy from producing Pink Floyd,
right, exactly.
And he got maybe halfway into production of a whole new production of the record. They had a collection of at least a dozen songs they had done with Jeff Emmerich, and I guess that the collective at Apple Records decided that it was not up to their standards or something, and so George got personally involved. But it was also at the same time he was doing the concert for Bangladesh, so all of his energy and attention got sucked away into that. And I remember going to Apple's studios, the studio that was in the Apple Records building,
right,
on Savile Row, and they were having a listening party, and that was the only time that I ever met George. And he said, well, we'll go busy with the and you just, use what you want or do whatever you want, with the rest of it, I just don't have the time. So he officially ceded the project over to me after I had already started doing it. And then he essentially said, take the masters that I work with them and, use them or don't use them, but he just didn't have the...
And that was pretty much the only conversation you had with him about this?
That was pretty much it. I remember that. I remember that Ringo's drums were set up in the studio, and I went over and, sat on the throne behind the drums, and marveled at all the tea towels that were draped over all the drums. They had gotten into this sound where they were putting towels on all the drums and make them sound really dead and dry. And Ringo's drums were still set up there. I don't know where Ringo was at the time, but that sort of fascinated me, and I might have done that once or twice. But I was always kind of a fan of the sound that the Beatles got in their early years, where the drums are really hot and live, And so I didn't fall for that tea towel stuff for very long. I liked the really hot, kind of drums that sound like drums.
Real drums.
Real drums kind of thing, And that was one of the things I believe in the early days that sort of characterized the Beatles records, because American records were all studio musicians, and they were the drums and all that other stuff, the drums, the guitars, they were all sort of pushed to the back, and it was always a lot of background singing and
vocal up front.
Just the emphasis was other parts of the band. And the great thing about the Beatles was their self-containment, that they didn't need any studio musicians or anything like that to make their sound. And after that, that was kind of where my head went. It was a different sound on the radio when they came on, a completely different thing. It was just like in your face and very kind of, I don't think effervescent is the word, but I never knew what a bass drum was until I listened to a Beatles record in a pizza restaurant where they had
best place to hear a Beatles record.
A jukebox with a 30-inch speaker in it or something like that,
instead of just a little AM, right?
Yeah, and you suddenly realize there's this, all of these other instruments that are part of the production. And so from that point on, that was kind of the sound that I preferred to hear, and that probably eventually qualified me to work on a Badfinger album or something like that.
We're going to spin the single Baby Blue. Now, when the gold disc came out here of Straight Up, it had a different single mix of Baby Blue. Now I can play either one, the album mix or the single mix. Have you heard
Well, I
the
have
single
no
mix?
idea what you're talking about.
Oh, come on.
Right.
Let's play. Go to 18. Let's play the single mix. Refresh Todd's memory here.
Yep, please.
Tell me when it's queued up, Uncle Mark. Here's a little Badfinger from the album Straight Up. Got to number 14 on the U.S. pop charts. Produced by
Bingo!
Todd Rundgren right here at 95.5 KLOS. It's got the reverb on the drum. It's got the reverb on the drum.
Oh, possibly.
The single
Oh,
version.
yeah, it's a little,
It's like a capital
more
idea.
spectre-y.
Yeah,